All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Did Have to Keep Going podcast. This is the podcast for the week of December 14th, which is usually when we record on a Sunday, but we are coming to you this week on a Monday night. If you're listening live, and if not, we're still coming to you on a Monday. You're just enjoying it on whatever day is right for you. We've got a great show tonight. Tonight, we've got part one of a two-part show. We'll be back tomorrow night with another episode to round out our Gaming Superlative show. Yes, gentlemen, it has been another year, almost in the books. We survived, kinda. But, you know, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to celebrate, a lot to get hyped about, some things to complain about, because it isn't enough to keep going podcast. We can't have a podcast without doing a little bit of both. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the 9th annual Enough to Keep Going Gaming Superlative show. So if you remember way back in 2017, we had been bouncing around for a number of we had a couple different names. We had some end of the year shows. Tao and Game Logic have been doing this for a long time, but we are, as a group, we are here for the 9th annual Enough to Keep Going podcast, and we brought back Swiss Guard. Swiss, so glad to have you.
Very happy to be back. It's been. I remember when we put these when we put these together, like the brainstorming session for the superlatives. So
we are glad to take you out of the closet, dust you off a little bit, plug you back in, let you charge up. Remember that your battery is not swelling and is about to explode, but you are going to make it. So I don't have a song prepared for our Gaming Superlatives kickoff, incorporating all of our 32 choices tonight. But that's okay. We got plenty to talk about. Yes, we have 14 different categories. The way we do it here on Enough to Keep Going is that instead of best action adventure and best family game and overall game of the year, we take a little different tact. We have 14 different categories. Most of them give us a chance to highlight a number of different games that we've enjoyed over the course of the year, but also give us a chance to also talk about some things that maybe we didn't enjoy this year. Oh, look at that. The soundboard works. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us tonight. Oh, so wonderful. We'll keep the applause. Please. Save your applause till after all the categories are announced. Don't just cheer for the one you're going to vote for. But yes, if you are listening, there is some opportunity to vote potentially as well. Because we are doing this over 2 nights, we have had some great community engagement over the course of this year and just want to continue that and give people a chance who are listening to join in and voice their thoughts, as many of you do each and every week on Enough to Keep Going. So that link is going to be available to you. Check the show notes, check social. It'll be out there as well. Deep breath. Gentlemen, are you ready to get started? Joining Swiss tonight, as Swiss said, he's ready and to be back. Tao, glad to have you here as always.
Thank you. It's good to be here for the end of the year. We made it, more or less.
More or less, yes, fair enough. And Game Logic running the boards, as always, keeping us honest, keeping us pseudo on time, but making sure at least we sound and look good doing it.
Yeah, it was very uncertain for a while if you were going to actually introduce any other cast members.
No, actually, we're just going
to just roll into it.
You know what? If you've made it through this year with us, you know who we are. And, you also know that it's been 6 minutes of me just filling time. So let's get into the meat of it, everybody.
We got right up there too, so that's fine.
There we go. I've got our results right here. We're going to start with best new lease on life, best ported game. So this is a category we're looking for something that is either getting a second life or maybe even a third or fourth, depending, or we've always had lots of ports and remasters and re-releases. So this category gives us a chance to highlight that. And actually, the date for this is quite appropriate. If you recall, 10 years ago today, on December 15th, there was one creative director who was let go after a long time at his company over just a heralded franchise. And Swiss, your first choice takes us right into that, where your choice may not be related to what this creator has been doing lately, but certainly gives a chance to revisit one of his pinnacle games.
Yes. So whenever I pick for the New Lease on Life award, I kind of just choose a game. Like, nowadays, it's very easy to find a ported game because it's very common, right, to do the remasters and the remakes. So I try to find one that I enjoyed in the past, and from Hideo Kojima, I picked Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta Snake Eater. So, of course, he's no longer with Konami, but the team that did Metal Gear Solid 3 and why I picked it in particular is, like, one, I really enjoyed the game back in the PS2 era, and two, I think the team did a good job of balancing this go round. I've been informed. I haven't actually played the remake, I confess.
I was going to ask you that because you're kind of talking
I'm
about
leaning on it.
Okay.
I'm following the game because I was excited about it, but I also heard that they did a pretty good job of actually, keeping the soul of the original game and making it a little bit more palatable, but not changing too much. So that was my pick, Metal Gear Solid 3.
Game Logic, did you pick up this game at any point in time over the course of the year? I know you picked up Death Stranding. I don't know if you picked up this.
No, I'm not a big Metal Gear Solid fan. And I just want to clarify. So we're talking about the Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater remake that came out this year?
Correct. This is Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct. All right. Thanks, Swiss. Let's roll into 2025. We also saw a release of a new Nintendo console. So, like many Nintendo consoles, we also get a number of ports and re-releases at the time of their release, as well as new games or old games are being brought over as new. Tao, you've got one of those games that you enjoyed when it released and have enjoyed it this year as well.
Yeah, so day one release on Nintendo Switch 2. That is Cyberpunk 2077. A game I have on Xbox. I bought that originally on Xbox, played it on Xbox X and Series X, and Xbox One X and Xbox Series X. And now I was kind of going back and forth whether I wanted to buy this one again, and I thought it would be a good one to see the kind of the power of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I wasn't disappointed. Obviously, it's not like as good, or maybe just slightly, a little bit not as good as the Xbox version, and obviously PC version is going to be the best. I mean, we all know that, but it's still a very, very good port. I haven't even gotten a chance to get to the DLC, which is I was going to say Liberty City. It's not Liberty City.
Phantom Liberty?
Phantom Liberty, yeah. But I've just been kind of picking at it like throughout the year. I'll go back to it every once in a while, and I'm probably going to do it during our winter break again when I'll be away from home and traveling. So it's kind of a game I can kind of just jump into. So yeah, Cyberpunk 2077.
All right, excellent. Game Logic. Before I hear your category, I just want to ask, I've got all of these in a separate document. Do you want me to just copy and paste these in so that you're not taping them as we go, and then you can, whatever works best for you as you're trying to keep track of these as well?
I'm fine here with the banners. If there's anything else you want to do,
no, I'm just great.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, stay on the mic because you also chose a Nintendo Switch 2 game. One that, while maybe not running at 60 frames per second, definitely has been running pretty well on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Like you said, we've got two selections in the Nintendo, that are specific to Nintendo Switch 2 releases. So my pick was for EA Sports FC 26, and that is because the franchise on the Nintendo Switch, since it appeared on that platform, has been like some type of janky thing that is not the actual current release of the game. Like, it's been a version or more back. It's been a crippled version. It's been a scaled back version. It hasn't contained all the content. It's been all sorts of different, rounded corners to fit the thing onto the Nintendo Switch, in the best feasible manner. And this year was the first year with the advent of the Nintendo Switch 2, new hardware. Also, I think I want to mention too that it'll be interesting to see how this continues throughout the next couple of days, because obviously during these times we kind of go back through, like, we're looking at all the past agendas. Like, I'm trying to clear up the news room on Discord, so I'm seeing all the old stories that we've posted there, and I've been in like May, June, so during the launch, and I was kind of trying to feel like, so was like the Nintendo Switch 2 like as big a splash with us as it was when it was the Nintendo Switch? Because we kind of look back at the history of the show earlier this year when the Switch 2 launched. But at any rate, so I'm kind of looking for like a feel of like, were we really impacted by the Switch 2 release? Because yet, I think, is it 3 out of the 4 of us who have? So we were all on the Switch, and right now 3 out of the 4 of us have the Switch 2, right? Swiss, you're still waiting to jump, correct?
Very imminently.
Is it under the tree?
It is en
Okay,
route.
we'll ask you just yes and no questions in case any children are listening.
Right.
Okay, I will count that as once again all 4 of us are on the Switch platform. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the night goes. But I have EA Sports FC 26 on the Switch 2. It's actually one of the things that I plan on playing a little bit this week in handheld mode. And it's a huge difference for me, somebody who plays FC. And I think this is yet again a year where I'm playing on PC. I'm playing on, I think I have it on PlayStation 5 this year, and then I have it on Switch to play it in portable format. On PC, I'm pretty sure I have it on Epic, so it's not something I can play on the Steam Deck. So when I want to play it in mobile format, I play it on the Switch too. So that was a standout enough get for me this year to select it for this category.
Nice. All right. Well, I will round out this category with a mobile related game as well. It's not a Switch 2 game. Well, technically, yes, it is, but not originally. So my choice is Octopath Traveler 0, which started life as Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent back in 2021, I believe. Lived for a few years on mobile, lots of gotcha mechanics there. And earlier this year, the servers shut down for the mobile game. And this summer, Square announced that it is coming as kind of a full package. Not only all the content from the mobile game, but also they've added an introductory chapter, which kind of one of the things that this does differently than the mobile version is the mobile version, because it was gotcha, the character you started with was kind of whoever your first free pull was. So it didn't necessarily, center around one specific character, and all the characters have different backstories and different kind of stories that they have tell their own little vignettes, similar to any other Octopath Traveler game. But this one, as it's now a console and PC release, you start with a new introduction, a new kind of prologue story, which you have the traditional nameless or silent protagonist aspect of a character, which then allows you to meet and incorporate all the other characters along the way that you would have got through a gotcha game. This is a game I played 6-7 months worth on mobile. It was a daily play. It was in part because the stories were really good, but also in part that the mechanics were excellent. One of the things that did differently than Octopath 1 and 2 is that it is you have 8 people in your party. You've got 8 people in your party, and like a front line of 4 and a back line of 4, and so it gives additional strategy, because in other Octopaths you can break and build up some some charge basically as you are doing things, and then this allows you to go in, and so there's this level of strategy, and because you have so many different characters, they all have different abilities, and and it just is engaging. It was super engaging on mobile, and it's great to have something that's not a gotcha game, all built in, and have it all just as one single package. So that's my choice for best lease on life. Or haha, best new lease on life. So
So on the screen, just for historical context, I brought up our 4 picks from last year.
all right, thanks. All right, well, let's move on to. Thanks for doing that, Game Logic. That's nice to have that historical reference here.
Yeah, no,
And Henry Heck, thanks for joining us as well.
no similarities there. No recurring themes, really. I don't think.
No. Well, let's move on to our next category, which is biggest surprise game of the year. So I'm going to start on this one, and my surprise follows a trend that was started last year, but definitely continues this year and is going to pretty much continue going forward. Back in January, it was announced that this game was coming to PlayStation 5. And not only did it come in March, but it also gave it a complete new life. It almost made my best new lease on life, but it sold gangbusters. And this game is Forza Horizon 5. So the fact that, one, it came, and now we know it's all part of a larger strategy, but also the fact that it sold so well that it continues to sell well on PlayStation, and which is why it is my biggest surprise game of the year. So, Tao, your next game is this is not it will not be the last time that this game you get a chance to talk about over the next 2 nights. So I'll let you start and decide when you're going to stop so that you have more to talk about later on.
Yeah, so this is a game kind of in the vein of Rocket League, some of those kind of other sporty games. It's Rematch. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, like a lot of people were kind of comparing it to Rocket League because it's more, arcadey. It's not simulation game. And I was like, all right, it looks kind of cool. Like I'm probably, I'll try it out. And then I just got like totally sucked into it for like 3 to 4 months, 5 months, maybe even. Kind of just fell off just because of other games that came out, and I was doing a lot more on the Switch 2, excuse me, and kind of hoping that it comes to Switch 2 because I play a lot of. It's probably my main console right now is a Switch 2, even over anything else, even over the PC sometimes. But yeah, I was totally surprised that it just kind of sucked me in. I was playing almost like every day. Basically, it was basically it did replace Rocket League for a while there for those few months when I was playing it. So it just like totally took over, everything I was doing. So it was just a really fun game, and still I'll jump back into it every once in a while now. Well, actually, I can't because it was on Game Pass, and I don't have Game Pass right now. But maybe eventually, if it does come to Switch, hopefully it does one day, I'll pick it up on there and continue trying to weed my way up the ranks there, even though it was like hard. I never got past bronze, but I don't know. It was just a super fun game.
So I do want to ask one question. And this is a thread poll. This is not an attack.
There will be.
You always say that.
Game for attack. It's okay.
Okay. So
this will not be the first and last attack that you have on Tal tonight either. I've seen his list, so
he'll attack me again this next couple here.
So as DBQ mentioned, we've been doing, you and I in particular have been doing this a very long time.
Yeah,
I can recall like the DNA of the conversations, and I know that I have heard you talk more about Rocket League. I feel like I've actually heard you talk more about what was the dodgeball game that we played from EA?
Knockout City.
Yep. Knockout City.
Knockout City. Yeah.
I felt like I remember the conversations of like you like feeling excited. I feel like I haven't heard you talk that much about Rematch, and so my question is isn't like you falsified your vote. My question is like, is that because like soccer, like soccer, you like that because surprisingly enough, like one of my picks for the last thing, EA Sports, FC 26 and kind of FIFA, like that is so much the zeitgeist of soccer that like the conversation about rematch hasn't like surfaced as much, or just kind of I mean, for this to be your
yeah,
pick for New Lease on Life, I feel like I haven't heard
is
you
not
talk
a,
as much about it as I have heard you talk about other games that are kind of this ilk. Is all I'm
it's
saying.
definitely, I remember you talking about it over the summer
Yeah.
when it came out. And then you're right. Like, this is, I will rephrase Game Logic's question is this a game that you continued to play, but didn't necessarily talk about because we have so much other stuff that we're talking about? Or is this something that made this list because when it came out, it grabbed you so, completely and also surprisingly, hence the category, that this is why you pulled it back at the end of the year?
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, it became my Rocket League, so I was like, I mean, I could have put Rocket League every week, for the past like whatever 5 years that I've been playing it, and it just became that same thing. Like I was just playing it, like I said, like almost every day. So I was like, I'm not gonna put that in the notes like every time. Like every once in a while, I think I put it in there if I just didn't have anything else in there, like throughout the year. But yeah, it was just that was for me. It was the biggest surprise this past year that I got so hooked into it, and it took over. It took over. Like I said, it took over Rocket League, which now Rocket League's back in my rotation. So it pretty much is always there, but it's always my go-to game. But yeah, that's why.
So I feel like this I feel like then is the Destiny 2 moment that I had like a few years ago. Whereas like we complained about Destiny 2, we commented about Destiny 2, and then like unknowingly, really, I had not realized it. Like we were prepping to do the show, and I looked back at my data, and I saw that I had a crap ton of hours in Destiny 2. And I was not planning on making it a pick for any of my votes, right? For any superlative categories. And I was like, oh, no, I put that many hours into it. That must mean something. So I get it. I get it. No, that's interesting. That's kind of what I wanted to kind of pull the thread on.
Okay, well, I'm glad you saved your challenge flag because you may need it later.
Yeah,
tonight.
you're gonna need a couple here.
All right, well, stay on the mic, Game Logic, because you are going next.
Okay, so biggest surprise game. That's pretty easy for me. I probably have the least. Like if you put my votes down on a scatter graph, I probably have the least area of dispersion of my votes. But for me, it was Claire Obscure Expedition 33 this year. And I knew the game was coming. I knew I was interested in it. I did not expect I did not expect to go at it the way that I did, because I don't. That is not my norm. I was
That's completely true. You haven't been taken like this by a narrative game in a really long time.
That's even on the outlet side, right, of the Valve. I'm talking about when I was in it too. Like I was once I realized that there was kind of like a mystery to unravel, like that there was everything wasn't being told to you. I became hyper concerned about somebody spoiling it and me like not gaining that experience myself. So the course of that game, I pulled 2 evenings till 2 a.m., 1 evening till, so I finished it in 10 days. I pulled 2 evenings till 2 a.m., 1 evening till 4 a.m., and an all-nighter. And when I pulled the all-nighter, I like finished at like 5 a.m. in the morning. I did my morning routine, and then I took a half day off of work and continued playing through that morning until about like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
So you went back to like high school and work time where you're like just totally enthralled. I didn't realize it was that like you got that enthralled into it. Like I don't think you told us that earlier when you're talking about Expedition 33. So that's great.
Yeah, I think because of our format, with our format, like I had two real opportunities to kind of really brief out on Expedition 33, right? Because we tend to not like revisit stuff when we move on. On other podcasts that I show up on, Expedition was an ongoing topic for like multiple, and still is being talked about. Enate and Hero Down Under are in the chat tonight, and the two of us, along with a guy named Thrifty and Morgan, we did a spoiler cast, which I think lasted maybe 3 hours plus. And one of the comments I made in the course of doing it, I was like, and we could easily do another 3 to 4 hours on this game because there are rabbit holes that we are not going down. So yeah, that was my biggest surprise game for the year.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear you talk about it, and to such a degree. All right, Swiss, I'm going to turn this over to you to bat cleanup here because it's a perfect follow-up to Game Logic's passion.
All right. So I also chose Clair Obscura Expedition 33 for my biggest surprise, but from a different angle. And before you say, I haven't finished it, so no spoilers.
Okay. Yes, that's what I was trying to get at before, because we have people in the chat who have finished it. That's what I was trying to get out. Sorry, go ahead.
I was waiting to jump in, see if there was an opening to tell you, don't say anything. Okay. So for me, like, I enjoyed those types of narrative-based games. So like that wasn't the surprising aspect. I saw kind of like some of the trailers, and it piqued my interest. What concerned me was the battle system, because I hate QTE. And so when I saw that they kind of had that QTE flavor in the midst of the turn-based battles, I was a little bit I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to stick with this. But as I started playing it, I kind of got they did it well. So that was the biggest surprise for me, is that I kind of actually enjoyed like the real like those little timing almost mini games built into the fights. It made me feel a little bit like trying to get the perfect the timing just right in for like a flurry rush or something in Zelda. So and it did make me more eager to go after some of the optional type bosses or whatever, for like mini bosses or whatever, for to early in the game without grinding before I got to them or something, because I could avoid damage or something. But specifically, the surprise for me was my enjoyment of the battle system. The narrative I kind of expected to get hooked on.
Great. All right, and thanks, Game Logic, for adding our picks from last year. Again, you had another JRPG there, or another RPG, and thank you, Hero Down Under and Innate, for joining us tonight, but also for engaging in the reminder of how much Game Logic loves Clair Obscura. And this is, it's from, as Swiss and I look from the inside, outside looking in at somebody who has long not necessarily enjoyed RPGs, these last 2 years have been just sweet satisfaction. So it is wonderful.
So one additional historical thread I will mention. Yes, I had another JRPG, and Tao was playing another game on Game Pass, and so how the wheel has turned that he is no longer on Game Pass.
Well, we'll get to that category. But before we do, let's hit the next category, which is most disappointing game experience. And as I said, we don't always have to be cheery. We can be a little grumpy, and also we can argue with each other, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some picks here that are going to raise some eyebrows. So I'm going to start with you, Tao, and let you raise some eyebrows. And then when Game Logic goes next, I know he's going to raise some eyebrows as well.
All right, as we're all to do during these categories, even just throughout the year, we like to bend the rules a little bit, especially with these categories. So I got a game here that is not new by any sense of any stretch of the imagination, but it's new to me because this is the first year I actually played this game, and it was on PC, and that is Star Citizen. going through this game initially, I was like, wow, this is actually really, it's a really good game. The graphics are great. Gameplay is pretty good. You get to do these firefights with people. You can do all these different other kind of jobs and stuff. But man, eventually though, just the bugs, just even though I didn't, well, I guess there was one kind of major bug with the elevators, which I think they finally did fix when you're in space stations. But just the little things just started to like just pound me down and just nag at me, and I was just like, I couldn't take it anymore. Like even with the elevator thing, like it was just like it looked like it was fixed and then it wasn't, and it was just like back and forth. Like just what would I'm going to say simple things, but I know they're not simple because obviously game development's really hard. But this is a game that's been out now for, well, I don't even say out. It's in development now for what, at least 10 years. I think maybe even a little bit more. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And it was just like, it just disappointed me so bad because I could just see like what they're trying to do, but they're just not there. And I don't know if they'll ever be there. But yeah, it's Star Citizen. So that's my pick for this year.
So Tao, we have 2 conversations chalked up that we need to pull apart on this show that we may have to do special episodes for.
Here comes the challenge flag. Hold on.
I'm not
Review the
pulling
change.
challenge flag. One is your disappointment with Xbox this year, but 2 is this. Like, pulling this thread would get way too long.
Yeah.
So I'll just because I hate to say this because I'm really not trying to pull this thread. You don't have to get into this. I will say how this happened without us talking about it beforehand. You knowing that I went deep undercover for E2KG for a year to infiltrate the Star Citizen community and figure out what was what. And then I forget what the term is used when a cop goes undercover and then becomes like.
Yeah, you went too deep.
I went too deep.
Now.
Right,
Yeah,
I went too deep. And I eventually came out. I eventually went and got help. I went to rehab. But yeah, no, this is super interesting. Now, and
how much? Hold on. How much did you have to pay for rehab? And was it ongoing because it wasn't actually finished, and you had to keep paying to just hopefully finish it?
Was it more than the actual game? Did you buy a ship for $1,000?
No, I didn't. I bought ships. I didn't pay $1,000 though.
Yeah, I know.
But no, I still go back and play. But that's because I'm a space and flight sim fan, and I play with a HOTAS with a flight control system, which I know you don't. So then that's another thing that I want to pull a thread on. So we'll park that for tonight. But super interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to say the controls never really got to me. I didn't really that never bothered me. Like the flight controls, I can't use mouse and keyboard. Like so, I just use my Xbox controller, which is fine. Like you know how you have to. We'll talk about this later. We're not going to go through this right now.
Yes. So the first show of 2026 for E2KG is going to be following up on the threads that we couldn't quite pull all the way at the end of the year. So
it's going to be Star Citizen deep dive. That's what we're going to do the first podcast. Okay,
it's a support group. So anybody else wants to join, come on in.
That bug that you think is fixed is not fixed. I guarantee you, it's still there, and it will recur at some point if you ever go back to the server.
All right, Game Logic. Now it's your turn to throw down and see who steps up to your challenge.
Yeah, this is a slightly tongue-in-cheek pick. My pick is Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's a little counter programming because I feel like a lot of the hype around it was just like, I mean, I have my own opinion.
It was the only new game on Nintendo Switch to play that for that month. Is that what the hype was?
I don't even give that. I think it was more of a platformer thing. And I think we would have had that maybe whatever platform it had shown up on. I just kind of feel like I don't go too hard in the paint on the notion that like there are genres that are antiquated or like the gaming industry has moved on or look, you can have a great game, a perfectly executed game in a certain thing, but like, platform before first-person shooters became a thing on consoles, platformers used to be one of the big five that you had to have at a console launch, right? You would have to have, this game, and a big platformer, right? And then we got into we nailed first-person shooters on consoles, and kind of, in my opinion, first-person shooters really took that place. these days a excellently executed platformer comes along, like for me personally, I'm like, number one, I'm not particularly interested in platformers. Number two, um, I'm not really gonna be super supportive like of my own right thing for like a well executed platform being in the game of the year conversation like Donkey Kong Bonanza was. I get the nostalgia and I get like that's where we came from and yada yada yada, but I'm like, we don't, you know, lots of us grew up playing King's Quest. We don't rah rah and pom pom for point and click adventure games anymore, you know. So my big thing with Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now again, this is in the litmus test of
Okay, well, there you dropped the mic. Now it's my turn.
This is in the litmus test of a year where I've also played Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is quite literally the most impactful game that I've ever played, right, in my decades of playing video games. So you have that. But the other thing is, like, I'm not over the moon about the fact, like, about that the most innovative thing about the game, the most exclamatory thing about the game is that at any point I can pick and choose to dig a hole to China. Like, that's great, but I'm like, digging a hole to China for 50 something levels, I don't really know, you know. I mean, it's great that you can transform. It's great that like the singing karaoke girl is there with you. Like, I don't really know other than like the well executed craft of the level design and things like that. Like, I don't really know that there's anything else particularly like earth shattering, right, about that game for me. So,
How far did you get?
I think I got about 70% through before, you know, I took off to do other stuff. So, so again, this is not, again, like for people watching, right? This is a good time to take a news break, right? These are superlative awards. So this is not us saying this is the best game, this is the worst game. These are 14 categories that describe our experience playing games, and so this category is what was the most disappointing game experience for you. So for me, my most disappointing game experience this year was spending a ton of time playing Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah, no, I think that is you are not alone in some of the criticisms or the disappointment in terms of some of it, even as there's lots of people and even some on this podcast who will praise it as well. But that is exactly the point of the show, is that we all have different experiences. We all have, you know, our tastes overlap, but they also diverge. And so the beauty of bringing us together on a weekly basis and also at the end of the year is the ability to highlight this. So,
and that's the last thing I'll say, because like that's another like point of like correction and like any takeaway that it is a good game. It is a well executed game. It firmly plants a foot in establishing an argument that it is one of the best executed platformers that have ever been designed and published over the last few years. That all being said, when I tally up like what made me happy and what made me not so happy this year, this is the thing that made me, you know, arguably the least happy of the games that I played.
I think you made a good point too about just about our list in general, where like most other sites, the hosts or the people from those sites will band together and say, hey, this is what we all thought. You know, they had to, you know, argue back and forth, but this is all just personally, this is all just our picks, like what we had throughout the year, which I think makes us a little bit different.
Yeah, it's exactly, I mean, it's part of why we do this, is that it provides that diversity of opinion without having to nail down one definitive game. Speaking of nailing something down and trying to be precise, but still just spitting ping pong balls out of my mouth, Swiss, what is your disappointing game of the year?
My most disappointing game experience this year is Ball X Pit, and just because like it looked really cool. And you know, I was like into like the ping, like the pinball slash like kind of old school like arcade, you know, even Breakout like inspiration, right? I get that it had like those roguelite whatever. It's really hard to avoid that nowadays. But I started playing it, and then I had some stupid base building mechanic where I had to like plop things down and then like bounce my dude around to collect like I don't know, wood or whatever.
Yeah,
And
all your resources.
yeah. and it was just like, man, this is so painful. And then the other, I guess, like that's what really dragged it down. I will say that like there's so much going on with regards to like the different power-ups you can get too. It was just, I didn't feel like as much of a strategic pull. Maybe if I had spent more time with it, I would have started to feel like I was trying to organize my run in a cohesive way. But like there was so much going on, um, that like I was just randomly picking, I'll do this upgrade, I'll do that upgrade right now. It was just like it didn't, it felt like they were just like, man, you know what's really awesome? These pick 3 in a roguelite, and we're just gonna go all the way with that. And then they're like, you know what's cool? Base building. We should throw that in there too. And so yeah, I came, and it was it was my most disappointing because like looking at it and seeing some of the trailers and stuff, I was actually pretty excited about trying it out just for like some arcade fun. But yeah, then it was a bit of a letdown. I'm not going to say it's like a terrible game, but it was a letdown.
Fair enough. All right. Henry Heck, way to pull Blades of Fire. I forgot that game even came out, but that is a Mercury Steam. Yeah, Mercury Steam. They did the Castlevania 3DS game. They did the Metroid 2 remaster. They did Metroid Dread. So nice pull there. All right, so our 2024 disappointing picks here are up on the screen now as well. And I will round off mine with not saying a whole lot, except this is a game a franchise that I've put hundreds, a couple thousand hours into over the course of this series. And it is also something that I've played with people online, played with friends and family. And this year, it just landed like a dud. And not only was it landed like a dud in terms of my own enjoyment and engagement, like my other family members who normally play this never picked it up. But also it landed like a dud in terms of performance and stability and how many shaders does it need to cache before it crashes, and if you can restart your machine every hour, the game plays okay. And so, yes, I am talking about Randy Pitchford's Gearbox's Borderlands 4. All right, gentlemen, let's move on from one disappointing category into our. This is another space where we will take a little bit of time to pull some threads, because the next category is our wretched hive of scum and villainy, or game most emblematic of sleazy business practices. So over the years, this has been a distinct and specific game. Sometimes it's a developer, sometimes it's a publisher, sometimes it is an industry practice. And this year, we set our sights on 2 publishers as we go through and talk about this. There's been so much that we could have talked about, right? Plenty of layoffs, questionable design choices, Swiss's hate for base building, but we focus on 2 publishers. And Swiss, I'm going to let you start because you and Tao both have some ire with the same company.
Okay, I figured this one would double up. So I chose Microsoft. Like they were in the headlines a lot this year for a lot of negative reasons. Like as you mentioned, the layoffs, like all the drama, what have you, with like the new Game Pass formats and everything. For me personally, like my experience with like them, I've never been like a Linux aficionado, really. Like I use it at work for servers and that's about it. But I've always enjoyed Windows, mostly because I'm a gamer. And just honestly, like I'm so sick of the AI and the Copilot beings like rammed down your throat. And I know like you know, Game Logic has had some negative experiences with like OneDrive and all that. Just everything is going downhill with Microsoft, and it's just that was so yeah, that was the first thing that popped in mind, and the thing that I felt the most strongly about. And it's like when my first pass through reviewing the superlative category, so that's the one that I picked. But it's driven me on to like I'm starting to play with Arch Linux and everything, and seeing if I can make a go of it as like a daily driver. I am not on Arch Linux right now, but hopefully maybe next time I'm on the show I will be.
Wow, so you went even bigger than like Microsoft Game Studios. You went all the way up to the top as an entire company. So, Master, you also, as Game Logic alluded to, have had some issues. I think we've all had some issues with Microsoft this year, and we've talked about it in different ways, but I always thought of you as a dedicated Xbox person. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year or the fall, in terms of as you have kind of pulled back, faded away, felt pushed away. So why does Microsoft land on your list as for this category?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of what Swiss said. I mean, and what we've been saying throughout the year. So I don't want to beat that side of the horse, as it were. But I will bring up one other thing that kind of came up. I think it was early in the year, maybe even the end of last year, the year before, or last year, was they had the family program that they had been kind of testing in other countries, and that just never came to fruition at all on in the U.S. or in North America. In general. So, and that just, I was like I had my son, he's always playing on Xbox 2 now, or was. He kind of goes back and forth. He'll pick up like a month or so here or there of Game Pass and, play with his friends or whatever. But I was like, oh, that's perfect. I can get him in. My wife sometimes plays with us. We can even try to, get onto different games if I have Game Pass too. But it's just like that, just like nothing, like it just disappeared. Like we never heard anything at all, after that little bit of a test run in those other countries. So that's like the one thing I'll bring up that's, hasn't been said already. That was just kind of a disappointment. Like, it's just like, what happened to it? And just like, and we've said this throughout the years, and a lot of people have said this, just messaging on Xbox, and I know Swiss went Microsoft, and I could probably go that way too, because there's a lot of stuff that's kind of just pissing me off lately with Microsoft in general. But just to keep it on the Xbox side, it's just like those kind of things just kind of just kind of beat me down, I guess, this year. So I was just kind of, for now, I'm just kind of stepping away. Obviously, I'm still using Microsoft. I'm still using Windows here at home and stuff like that. But I myself, I've never touched Linux at all in my life, but I'm actually kind of thinking about maybe I'll just play around with it, like see what happens. So, because other than like gaming, I'm not using my PC for much else, like anything super complicated or interesting. So normal office stuff and all that kind of stuff. So maybe I'll jump into Linux also too at some point. So we'll see.
It's very poignant because there were various points where I was going to ask, right, as you guys were kind of circling in on what specifically was your wretched hive, and there was a point in Swiss's monologue where he struck on, okay, and I was like, okay, he's saying Microsoft, not Xbox. And then it was kind of very interesting as I was listening to Tao, because it sounded like Tao was going to move in that direction also, but it was very poignant to hear you land on, no, but I'm squarely on the stuff about Xbox that's really making me cranky. So I thought that's very interesting. And I will say, yeah, you did hear one thing about the family plan. You're right in that there was silence about it specifically, but the moment that it went silent was also the moment that you got the price increase, right? So like that family plan thing was in beta right up until the price increase, and then that was the point where we heard nothing else about it. So it just was very ironic.
It's interesting because like you put it up against Steam and their family plan. My son can, like, it's very easy for us to, like, one of us picks up a game and the other one gets to play. Like, it's very, like, I wish more companies would do it that way. So.
Oh, well, something I don't wish more companies would do is our next one here. And Game Logic, you and I both are on this bandwagon, but for different reasons. So I'll start broad and I'll let you drill in a little bit more. on your specific one. But mine, if you were listening last week, when I stood on at least put one foot on my soapbox of Saudi Arabia's PIF purchase of EA and owning 94% of the company. This is my pick for this year, is the purchase of EA. As I said last week, I don't necessarily have I'm not against it going from a publicly traded company to a private company. I have concerns as Hero Down Under, or as you voiced in the chat last week as well, right? Any government that has a controlling share in a artistic expression and a game studio raises concerns. Any government that has, ordered assassinations or has a history of civil and human rights against it. And I am not just pointing fingers at Saudi Arabia here. I think you could make that case in lots of different places. But I think that to me, the fact that this is what EA will be, both concerns me of creatively and also kind of monetarily in terms of where I'm putting my money. Game logic, as we unpacked a little bit last week, that's not necessarily your concern. You have some other concerns about EA this year.
Yeah, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek too. Number one, I figured that other cast members were going to pick up on like the Microsoft thing and the layoffs and things like that. So I decided I didn't need to go hard in the paint and kind of pile on and dogpile, with that. But this one was one that leaped very largely into my windshield and struck me right at the heart of like the things that I love, just as I was kind of making the transition back to like focusing on these types of games. And so my pick for the Wretched Hive of Scum and Villainy is Codemasters deciding that they're not going to do I said F125, but it really meant there's no F126 next year, and that they are also concurrently giving up on the WRC license. So they dropped the news first about the WRC license, and then a few weeks later was when they said no F1. And so I'm a person who's literally been playing Colin McRae's Dirt, which was what the series was called when it first released, since its inception. And it was at the moment in time where I was going really big on PC. So I was getting my, it's one of the things that drove me to get like wheel and pedals, and I'm also a WRC fan. So, I unfortunately was familiar with, Colin's passing. And so there's that. And I'm like, and I played the Kyloton race, the KT racing games for years. I discovered them late, but fell in love with them when I found out who was making them. And so for EA to use its muscle, as it frequently does, to wrest the exclusivity of the sports license away from KT Racing, to put out the horrible version of EA's WRC that they put out, which is still bad. And then, and along with the acquisition of Codemasters, and I'm not saying it was EA's choice, maybe it was Codemasters' choice, but for Codemasters to choose, however the decision got made, to then try and put that on Unreal when they have the Ego or Evo engine that they do F1 in, versus like I may have even felt better about them using Frostbite, because at least then we have a studio taking the publisher engine that millions of dollars have been invested in, and sure, it's probably going to be like the difference in if they'd done a Frostbite WRC and that had been bad, at least I would have had hopes and belief that, okay, well, they're going to keep working at it and eventually it will get good because that's the EA engine. But they did it bad in UE5. And I'm like, so now I don't know, what was going to happen. So then they dropped that turd kind of on the market. And then this thing with F1 in the midst of this acquisition. And I'm like, so what does this mean? And and Codemasters is, I've done the exercise where I've like whittled down to like my top favorite 5 studios of all time. And Codemasters is one of them. And I reluctantly picked it in there because I could see the nose on the airplane pointing down. And then you get this. So it's just, but there's going to be F126 as DLC next year, which I guarantee you is going to be paid because EA's not giving that away for free. So, and it's not going to be cheap is my other assumption. So, just an overall scummy move, in my opinion.
All right. Well, let's round the corner into some more positivity here for our last three categories of the night. Our next one is developer or publisher with the best attitude in the face of adversity. So I'm going to start off this one, and I'm going to choose a studio. I almost chose your studio that you picked, Game Logic, just by the nature of what it accomplished. But the studio that I picked is Ad Hoc. So Ad Hoc, made up of former Telltale people and Ubisoft people. They put out Dispatch this year. Ad Hoc was brought together. They around 2020, even before, they were working on A Wolf Among Us 2, and were deep in development of that before it was canceled by Telltale, or the new version of Telltale. And they also were planning on Dispatch being a live action television show, and pivoted to make it a kind of narrative choice based game. And the fact that it came out in such a high quality in a genre that has not had a lot of high peaks over the last couple of years, I give credit to Ad Hoc for making that possible. So, Game Logic, I'll turn it over to you for the next one here in terms of your choice, which, based on our conversation so far tonight, should not be too much of a surprise for people, but I think it does not diminish what this studio accomplished.
Yeah, so for me, Dev publisher with the best attitude in the face of adversity. This is one where I took the academic, maybe clinical definition of this category and stretched it just a bit. Yeah, I mean, I guess they did experience a little adversity when they started patching the game, because there was a lot of pushback about, oh, why are you guys tweaking this? Why are you tweaking that? But my pick was for Claire, once again, for Claire Obscure. Well, more specifically for Sandfall Interactive. So I don't necessarily feel like they really experience like major adversity in, like, in terms of the game. They didn't have the Helldivers 2 or the Power World thing where it's like, oh my god, cycle the sweat pumps to fast, get more servers online. And they didn't have some of the other things, like they didn't have a Hello Games type of situation. But it was more so for the notion of what they rendered out of the difficult landscape that the industry itself is, right? That a relatively small team. And yes, I get it. Like, there's lots of detractors who try and say, well, it wasn't just 33 people. They had an army behind them. And I readily admit, I'm like, look, you see Lorient Testard and I can't remember his partner's name, Alice something or other, on the soundstage on YouTube, right, doing the Claire Obscure soundtrack. I'm like, okay, let's be real. Soundstages cost money. Like, you don't get onto a soundstage for free, right? You don't get the acoustics of the theater rented out with all the engineering that goes behind it to cut that album. And you're not paying for that out of your pocket if you're Sandfall Interactive. That's Kepler. So they had a lot of backing by Kepler. Yes, I get it. However, still to be said, like, that for a core team of relatively small people, a relatively small core team, to render something like that on a very small budget, even with publisher backing, is pretty incredible with what they rendered. And when you look at the visuals, and you look at the visuals, and I still talk about the visuals, and I still, like, I've been replaying Claire Obscure, and I'm playing it on all platforms, and like the as good as the visuals are, the animations to me are what really steal the show. Like, the amazing, like pirouetting and grace that's shown by, like, the character models, when you do a parry and you do a counter, like, as every battle ends, it's just a cinematic moment that's wonderful to take a screenshot of. That soundtrack, which I think is like 150 something songs, it's just ridiculous. And the fact that it, like, charts on streaming services like Spotify and other things, it's just really amazing that that team could have pulled that off. So that is my pick for best attitude in the face of adversity for their development life cycle.
Sure. Well earned. Swiss, you had a studio that I had to look up to remember who they were. So I want to hear why you picked this one for your category.
All right. I also want to remind everyone that we have to pick these and get them submitted before the Game Awards.
I noticed that because this would have been much more timely coming out of
My
the Game
God.
Awards. Yep.
No. So my studio was Thekla or Tekla. Basically, it's Jonathan Braid's studio or Jonathan Blow's studio, the designer of Braid and The Witness. And I picked it because I'm kind of like into some like I follow like different programmers on YouTube and what have you, streamers, and you know, a lot of them got their like started with him. Some of the guys I follow, and so I've been following his studio. They mentioned it at the Game Awards, but his new game, Order of the Sinking Star, like I just knew it as Sokoban. That's how they've been referring to it for the last number of years. If you caught it, it said 10 years in the making. But people don't realize, and this is why I picked them. Um, he in 2014 was like, I have these ideas about how a programming language should work for game developers specifically. And he talked about some random, he just did a stream and he was just like, hey, like programming should be fun, there should be more data oriented design, blah. So he had some ideas, and then rather than just like kind of complaining about how C++ was evolving or something, he just started to build his own programming language. So that's where Jai came from. So he's built the programming language, developed the compiler, built the game in his new programming language. And so like a small studio, doing all that engineering, I thought was impressive. And I remember him distinctly saying in one of his podcasts that he's like, people don't realize how close we were to closing um, at one point. So all those things were like uh, why I chose his studio, not knowing that he was gonna like they're gonna have their grand reveal at the Game Awards. So I was happy to see that, and I mean I'm looking forward to the game too because I really like the Braid and Witness, so I'm excited about it.
Nice. Thanks, Swiss. Soul Tech, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. Let's move on to our second to last category for the night. This is most likely to be mentioned in other media as pop culture. We've got some big franchise names here tonight and also a newcomer. But in this list, there is no Fortnite. There is no Call of Duty. But let's go back to the early 80s with an arcade cabinet and a revival of a franchise. Game Logic. Seriously, you have to look at your list after that setup? Come on, Jumpman. I'm trying to like hand it right to you, and
I'm trying to post banners like at the moment when we're in the award and update everybody's picks. And so help me out. What category are we on?
You are on Donkey Kong Bonanza for your pop culture game.
What? This is the game most most likely to be mentioned in the media popper. Yeah, so I said Donkey Kong Bonanza. Despite my personal feelings about the game, that was the game that stuck out to me as being the one that moms and pops like would be aware of and would have heard, all the nostalgia for Cold War kids growing up around Nintendo, that I reckon that they've heard the buzz. I don't know. I guess it'll be interesting to hear everyone else's picks. I don't know of a ton of games that really like broke the zeitgeist of mainstream media normals this year. I think I did see like a couple kind of like CNN lines and stuff, talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza, just in kind of, regular normal people news. But I guess I'll be interested to hear what everybody else picked.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? Like, this was not a year where there was some giant breakthrough of a game that captured the zeitgeist of, the morning news shows, or honestly, whether that counts as pop culture or having 6 million views on a TikTok reel counts as pop culture is just as good of question in this day and age. Tao, you've got another big name that as Game Logic said, moms and pops would know and resonate with.
Yeah, kind of pretty much same thinking here. It was Pokemon Legends Z3A. It's Pokemon. That's all I gotta say. So I mean, it's probably gonna be mentioned somewhere. I would assume. I mean, I don't watch a lot of regular TV anymore, or even I'm not doing TikTok or anything like that. But I'm assuming that's probably gonna be mentioned here or there at some point.
Okay. So I would say my pick is one that I don't think really broke through as much as I thought it would, but it certainly deserves to and lives in that kind of pop culture zeitgeist, not necessarily with the Donkey Kong early 80s or the Pokemon late 90s, but more of the early 90s. And that is Digital Eclipse's Mortal Kombat, the Legacy Collection, with a K, of course, because it's Mortal Kombat. So this is the Digital Eclipse kind of history documentary video game where it combines a number of Mortal Kombats 1 through 4, along with Sub-Zero and a couple of other releases, both on the arcade platforms, console platforms, handhelds as well, but also has a lot of documentary footage, original interviews, archival footage of original motion captures that Midway was doing back in the day as they're trying to pulling something out of the technology that Pit Fighter created in terms of the kind of motion capture aspect and turning that into kind of the iconic Mortal Kombat franchise, which definitely had its pop culture moment in the early 90s, whether that is arguing in front of Congress for a rating system or blood, red versus green blood on your 16-bit console of choice. But yes, so my choice is Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection from Digital Eclipse. Swiss, your pick takes us out of the past and brings us into the zeitgeist of the current moment as studios are trying to find what the next multiplayer trend in gaming is.
And yeah, that's why I kind of like to avoid, if I can, think of something like just franchises that are already well known. I kind of want to try. I like to think about.
Thanks for judging our choices. That's really appropriate.
I would also
we'll have
agree
a chance to judge yours. Don't worry.
It was really difficult this year, but I chose Arc Raiders, and mostly because it was kind of like the I guess you could say breakout multiplayer game for the year, and if it ends up like continuing to gain traction or gains traction and continues to build its player base up, that might be a path to it being well known. So this is most likely to be mentioned. That's my hedge. I don't necessarily think it definitely will, but that's why I picked Arc Raiders, simply because of its multiplayer popularity for 2025. And I will also add it won Best Multiplayer Game at the Game Awards. So another moment of vindication for my picks.
And I would expect as we head into early 2026 with things like the BAFTAs and the DICE Awards, we're going to see Arc Raiders nominated other places as well.
Yeah, I think it'll depend a lot on kind of what goes on with like community uptake around that game, because there's some shifting dynamics right now. But I will say, and we were talking about this a little earlier today in another Discord, to me it is impressive in terms of mind share how that game, in conjunction with some others, like kind of trailing along behind it, but that game is definitely running point on. It has kind of flipped the conventional thinking on extraction shooters at a time that I think is very fortuitous for Marathon, because until Arc Raiders really landed and I saw the uptake on it and played it myself, I was like, extraction shooters to me is like the first person shooter of EVE Online. It's just a seal clubbing gymnasium, and it's just gonna like turn normals and casuals off, because it's just made for one of those things for for people to be griefers and just to hunt people who are just trying to have a good time playing the game in an environment where they can't be avoided, right? There's no separation. So, you can't just go have fun versus like being in the arena with all these guys. So, it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic unfolds. But today, it seems to be kind of changing that that common point of thinking, I think.
I think you're right. I think that's a really good point about it sets the stage well for Marathon, or at least provides Marathon an inroad that clearly was not there earlier when Marathon was supposed to release. So Arc Raiders deserves some acknowledgement in that space as well. All right, gentlemen, we are coming into our 7th category of the night and our final one for tonight. So we'll be recording. Those of you listening, those of you joining us online, thanks again for being here. We always appreciate you being here. If you have your own thoughts, there's ways to contribute what your thoughts on these categories are. Also, come back tomorrow night. We'll be recording tomorrow on Tuesday, the 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. I was going to say a.m., but that would be problematic unless you're Hero Down Under, down in the Southern Hemisphere. It'd be a little different. But we will be here 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central tomorrow night to finish out the final 7 categories, which include things like most likely to regret not playing in this year, or best story, comic relief, most overlooked game, most fun game, and most game most likely to still be playing next year. So lots of good categories tomorrow night, that we still have games to highlight and celebrate. But our final celebration is our category most likely to be named Game of the Year in most media outlets and other media outlets. And gentlemen, this is our only sweep of the entire show. So the way we do this, for those of you listening, we all submit, who's ever hosting each year takes the votes and the selections from the choices from the other hosts and compiles them together. The rest of, I may know all the answers, at least for tonight, but the rest of us going in are going blind every year, that we don't know what everybody else is going to pick. Hence the surprise and the enjoyment of griefing each other over our choices. But for this category, we all chose the same game. And Swiss, I'm going to let you start with this one because this was on your radar early and definitely fits within your wheelhouse. So please tell us about Sandfall Interactive's Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
I don't think I'll be able to do it justice, especially after game logic. But I don't know. Like, there's so many good things going for it. Just the atmosphere. Like I said, I surprisingly enjoyed the mechanics. The narrative is fantastic. The art direction. The level design even is I'm enjoying like the old school Final Fantasy throwback of the way that the move, like how they're constructed, and having to make my way around to find like the additional treasure chests and everything. So yeah, I guess last year I did Astrobot, and that was also one of my favorite games of last year as well. But like many years, like sometimes it's just like the whatever the game of the year or the zeitgeist happens to be does not overlap with what the game I most enjoyed playing that particular year was. But this year it was an easy call because have most enjoyed playing Clair Obscur. I expected other people too, and I feel like a lot of game, or these, like you said, dice and everything will be following suit. So
yeah, I think it is. We've talked about it here. Game Logic, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about it a little bit more, but it ticks all the boxes, both in terms of a new studio striking big, also an incredibly well polished and executed game from a technical standpoint, that it's going to get recognized in those capacities. A beautiful score and motion capture, like all the things that it was, record setting for in terms of the number of awards on the Game Awards. Certainly it deserves those and deserves what accolades it ends up getting at other outlets as well. It is the big game in a year of lots of big games, but also a big game by a small studio. So it is, and a new studio. So it is, there's a kind of feels good to recognize that accomplishment as well. So Game Logic, you probably are coming at this both from an analytical perspective of how others have interpreted it, but also the emotion and passion and experience that you have with this game factors into this as well.
Yeah, so I'm glad you bring that up. I'll talk about that aspect of it a little bit more. I think people know how I personally feel like about the game. So this category is not about the thing that we would pick or whatever. This is about us looking at the industry and the media and making estimates on what game is going to wind up right at these 5 major shows that DBQ mentioned, right? The Golden Joysticks, the TGAs, the TGAs being the one acronym that I will allow you to say the word and then the acronym when the letter in the acronym is the word, because that's a pet peeve of mine, but the TGAs is appropriate and it's allowable. So Golden Joysticks, the TGAs, DICE, BAFTA, and the GDC. It's the GDC something. It's not the I don't know if it's the People's Choice Awards or something, because those awards are not voted on by the public, but they're I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they're
okay.
the
And
GDC Choice
GDC
Awards.
itself is changing its name, so it's likely
true.
that. Yep.
So, but those are the big 5. And so kind of as I looked around the media and I saw like where this game was gaining traction and how people were talking about it, and there were contenders in the mix, right, amongst the conversations on media outlet podcasts, so not YouTube democratized podcasts, but media outlet podcasts. And Death Stranding 2 was up there, Ghost of Yotei was up there in the conversation. Blueprints was in the conversation. Several indies were in the conversation about just how they struck people and kind of caught them off guard. So for me, my prediction goes along the lines of just like I think Swiss kind of mentioned like the entirety of the production value, right? The visuals, the animations, the music, the mocap, like that. So Swiss, I know you haven't finished it, but I'm sure you've gotten past the first scene. But like that scene with Sophie and Gustav at the beginning, like the only scene that stands out in my mind with that type of theatrical performance was The Last of Us Part 2 with, I think it's Ashley Birch who plays Ellie, when Joel gets killed in the beginning. And there's that YouTube, right, part of the documentary that talks about how like after she filmed that scene, like cast members had, like, everybody had to take a break, like cast members were crying, our crew, people who were filming it were crying, who weren't even in like part of the scene, but just had witnessed that performance. Like that scene with Sophie and Gustav at the beginning is the only thing that I've ever seen compare. And now there's a discussion that mocap people should be a TGA category, which I think is appropriate, particularly when like the mocappers are separate performers from the voice actors, and when a big part of the SAG-AFTRA strike, the encore strike that happened after the writers and the actors, Hollywood actors, had settled, that like then the game performer strike built heat and did its own aftershock strike. Like that was inclusive of the people who participate in mocap. And when you talk about like a guy like Andy Serkis, who like made his entire reputation on mocap, granted in a Hollywood film, for Gollum, but I think it's important. Yeah, just the total package I think has left people struck in a way that is probably gonna, create a huge bow wave that carries this thing through all 5 of the major awards.
Tao, I think you're the only one of the 4 of us that hasn't played this game, but it ended up on your list as well.
Yeah, and that's pretty much because I've seen like everybody raves about this game, like even outside of us, this group, just the other discords I'm in, and just other forums and stuff that I've seen online, podcasts and stuff. So I mean, I think it was kind of an easy pick this year, but for a game that I'll probably never play, just because I can't get into turn-based type games like that. I just get bored with them after a while. Like I've tried, I don't know if I hated them, like Hero Down Under was saying earlier, but I just get bored with them, and it's just like I'll just fall off of it. And from what I had seen before, I actually knew what kind of gameplay this game was going to be. Like, I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. Just the storyline itself seemed really cool, kind of different. But then, obviously it's turn-based. I was like, I don't know, maybe one day, but probably not, more than likely. I know it got picked up, I think, too, for like a movie or TV or something. So maybe I'll watch that at some point if that ever gets made. But like I said, I'll probably never play it.
Well, it's got a double whammy for you because you correct me if I'm wrong. Are you not a Perry fan either?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, I'm not really a Perry fan. I can't get the timing down right. So unless it has an easy mode, like Where Winds Meets, that's another thing.
It does have an easy mode, right? It really it gives you the chance to enjoy the story, and it gives you a much wider window in the parry.
Well, there is an easy, like there's a difficulty level, but also on top of that, like I think it often goes without saying, and I mean it's definitely a thing that I had to learn. You don't have to parry. You can, you're going to want to parry because when you hit those counters, that's when you get the really big damages. And when you're fighting like some of the optional bosses, especially, which again, I mean, as I say that, those bosses are optional, right? But I would even say as you're fighting a lot of the bosses, you're going to want to hit some of those big counters. But you can dodge, right, in the game. And actually, you can select skills and things on your progression path that, like when you pull off a dodge, that gives you buffs, which will then allow you, right, to be strong in your attacks after. I would want to go through the game without parrying, just because it's just a spectacle. Like when your characters get leveled and you pull off a parry, first of all, like it's the golf swing moment, right? When you start playing golf and you're a crappy golfer and you haven't taken lessons, you get lulled into the sport because you play 18 holes, and in 2 of those holes, despite your lack of training, you will hit a drive. Just statistically, that's going to happen. You're going to hit a great, crisp drive that you feel resonating through that golf club. And despite the foolishness of it, you're going to say, oh, I could do that again. But you
It's
can't.
that sound of just that drive. Hits the driver,
Yeah.
you get that. Yep.
And we all play baseball, play baseball or watch baseball or play MLB The Show. And like, it's that pop crack of the bat when you hit right on the sweet spot. Right. But in this game, it is, you can replicate it, right? And so when you pull off that sweet parry, it just makes you want to do it over and over again. And you're gonna hit some bosses where you're like, okay, it's I should not try to parry this boss, right? I just need to admit I can't figure this attack out, and I just need to swallow my pride and do the dodge. But like I said, those dodges can be effective. So yeah.
I mostly dodge.
Yeah.
Just I just like, I'm not gonna go for like hitting it over the sand trap. I'm just gonna I'll lay up and take 2 shots to.
Yeah, Nate is saying they've actually in the patches they've actually made the easy mode even easier. I mean, so it has an easy mode, and Swiss, you mentioned that you don't like QTE. Like there's a, in my mind, the way I think of the design, there's a separable. There's the parry mechanic, but then there's also the QTE, right? When you're doing the attacks to hit the timing, and that latter one, you can set those to auto, so they just always hit, so you don't have to be bothered with it.
All right. Well, that is our final category for the night. We will be back tomorrow night. Warwana, thanks for joining us. Glad you made it. Nate, always glad to have you here. Hero Down Under, Soltech, And Henry Heck, great to have you in the chat. Hope some of you can come back tomorrow night. We've got plenty more to talk about, as we've got 7 more categories tomorrow night and lots more games. This is, as I said, this one was our only unanimous category. So we have plenty to talk about tomorrow night as well. Gentlemen, any other final thoughts before we wrap for night 1?
I just want to stick my toe in the door on one topic, because with this show, it's a unique format, and we kind of have to do support. So Warwana and Innate, like, and I think maybe Henry, I can't tell in the comments. Like, I just want to clarify Tao's comment. Tao is not saying this. Like, there are plenty of people out on social media who say parrying sucks, turn-based sucks. It's a bad game design. I hate it. That is not what Tao is saying. And I'm not saying you guys are saying that. I'm putting that point of clarification for anybody who comes by and watches the VOD. Tao is saying this is not a game type that is in his wheelhouse, and he doesn't feel the need to go out on a walkabout, right? And try it out to see if this is somehow different. Like, and we all have those genres. We all have those things. Years ago, for me, it was JRPGs in total. And it's not because I felt they were necessarily bad game designs or structures. It's just I had tried to play them before. They just hadn't hit me. And so, I hit a point where for a couple of years, I was like, I'm not going to keep banging my head against that wall. So just wanted to raise that up.
Yeah, no, right. I think that's a very important piece, right? I think in all of our discussions, it's not saying that we think it makes it bad game design. It is an individual choice there as well. All right. Game Logic, thanks for running the boards tonight, throwing up the chats from everybody. Everybody online that joined us, thanks for joining in the conversation. We always appreciate it. And we'll have plenty more to talk about tomorrow night. So, for myself, TPQ Hams, Swissguard, Master99, and Game Logic, this has been the Enough to Keep Going's Gaming Superlatives 9th annual Gaming Superlative show for 2025. Night 1 in the books. We'll be back again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. But until then, go out and play some games. Enjoy. Take care of yourself. And take care of those around you. Good night, everybody. Look at that. Thanks for holding the applause until the end. All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow night.